I've known her since she was around maybe 5.
Yeah, about four or
Yeah.
five.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty young. And I really just wanted to invite her on here because she's got a really cool testimony in part of her life. And I just love watching her grow up and mature. And she's been through some pretty hard things. But the young woman that she's becoming and that she is right now is incredible. And I think that her testimony is powerful. So we're just going to have a good time talking about that. And yeah. So just tell us a little bit about Lilli.
Okay, so I for just like testimony wise, I've always grown up in church. Committed my life to Jesus at 5. I got baptized, and I've never turned back. I've never been one to like doubt my faith. And sometimes, even when you are going through those trials, that's when you're like, wait, no, maybe I made a wrong decision. But for me, I always remind myself that I'm doing something right, and that is why the devil's coming after me because I am living my life for Jesus. I've also done gymnastics since I was 2, and I started competing when I was 5. So I've been competing for 11 years now, which is a long time.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then I got super involved in theater, and I'm super involved in our church. I'm on the worship team, and yeah.
Yeah. I just see your life as like watching you. I think something that defines who you are and is a part of who you are is somebody that doesn't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's who I see you as. And that even whenever something's not going the way that you want it to or expect, you just keep on persevering. So it's pretty cool. All right. So tell me about your gymnastics background. Like when did you start gymnastics
So
and why?
well, okay, so I started like mommy and me classes at 18 months old. One of my mom's really good friends owned a gym in Mount Juliet, and so she went to visit her one day, and she set me down on the floor, and I took off running and jumped face first into a foam pit, and never not done gymnastics since then. I've always been super passionate about it, and I like to think I've always been pretty good at it, and just had like a natural God-given talent for it. But it's actually really cool and ties into my testimony a little bit there because when I was, I think, 6 months old, I was in the hospital, and the doctors told my parents that I was going to die because my body was eating my muscles. And they were flying in specialists from all over the country, and nobody could figure out what was happening or how that even happened. And then by the time I was 7, I had a six pack and biceps and too many muscles. And so I think that's just also a really cool testimony just to beauty from ashes, just even in that way.
Yeah, I remember your mom has talked about that she was scared, but she leaned on the Lord and trusted him. And she had her mama gut stuff too that led her to fight for you as well. But there were miracles that happened, so very cool. And then of all things, you became a gymnast, which takes so much strength. And I remember your mom talking about how even in your crib, you would like be pulling up on the side and doing things that a normal, like an average year-old child wouldn't be doing. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool. So explain to me now. So you had been competing all these years, yes, and you guys even built a gym in your backyard, mm-hmm, so that you could train because you had big goals, right?
Yes. So from a young age, I always wanted to be a level 10. My goal was to be a level 10 by the time I was a freshman in high school, so I could have 4 years of being a level 10 and then go do gymnastics in college. I never thought I was going to make it to the Olympics. I was like very reasonable there. But that was always my goal, was to make it to level 10 and then do gymnastics in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
So hang on, let me think of the year. I was competing level 7, and I had actually gone to a different gym for a little bit because my dad had some health issues and nobody could really coach me. So I was at a different gym, and during a summer practice, I just did a little front handspring wrong, and there was like just a little pop in my shoulder. Mm-hmm. And so we went to the ortho doctor, and they're like, oh, it's fine. They just put me in a sling for 6 weeks, which looking back now was actually the worst possible thing they could have done and caused more damage. But I ended up with what's called thoracic outlet syndrome, which basically means my body was too small for my muscles. So full circle moment there. And so the muscles in my shoulder were starting to cut off the blood supply and the nerve flow to the rest of my arm and down my back. And so I was just in constant chronic pain, and I actually just kept doing gymnastics because I just did not want to stop. So after I came back to our home gym, and I was still competing, and my coach then was like, I think this is actually a bigger problem than you are letting on. And that's when we started going to more doctors and all of those kinds of things.
Okay, so during this time, how are you feeling like emotionally and mentally with gymnastics? Like and how did it affect you with your vision for your future? How did it affect your everyday life and how you saw gymnastics in your life?
Well, gymnastics has always been a part of me. And a few years back, I had like a little mental block, and I was just like scared to do anything. And during that time is when I really realized that my identity is in Christ and not in gymnastics. And so I had already learned that lesson, so it was a lot easier to not just be like, oh no, I lost who I am, I can't do gymnastics, what's going on? But it was definitely really hard because I was actually coaching gymnastics. So I was around it all the time, and I was teaching other kids skills that I always could do and loved to do. And so I was never like hated gymnastics, or it wasn't like a painful subject. And I was really glad to still be like involved in the sport. But it is really hard to go from doing something 20 hours a week to being told, like, I remember sitting in the doctor's office and they were like, yeah, you'll never compete again. Like, hang up your grips. You're like, you can never compete again. They were like, you're going to have all of these surgeries. And so you would be lucky to even just like be able to be pain free again, let alone compete gymnastics again.
So how did your relationship with God play into this? You just mentioned a little bit about your identity, which is huge. And I think even sometimes people don't even understand this when they go into adulthood, that like your identity is not wrapped up in a specific thing that you do. But how did your relationship with God help you walk through this dark time? And like, how did you grow closer to God, or did you start to get frustrated with God? Like, explain that.
Yeah, so like I said, is I already knew my identity was in Christ, and that gymnastics was a gift that he had given me to just show his glory and how he can turn anything for the good. I definitely feel like my relationship with God grew way deeper and way more intimate because nobody around me really understood what I was going through. I was a 13-year-old in chronic pain. Like, all my friends were talking about their crushes or their exam scores, and I'm like, I can't even write. Like, I can't eat without my hand giving out. And so it was really hard that like nobody around me understood what was going on. And so I definitely just prayed all the time because that was like the only person I knew that could understand what was going through. And so sometimes it was just, thank you for this pain not being so bad today. And sometimes it was crying on the floor, like, why is this happening? And I think that is definitely like a growth and an intimate relationship with God because I had never experienced that before. Like, even just like the crying out or waking up in the middle of the night feeling like I'm being stabbed in my back and all I can do is pray.
Yeah. Well, all right. So you finally decided that you're with your mom and your dad that it was time to go ahead and get surgery, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us about that. And I think that you had some breakthrough that happened with surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually leading up to surgery, they were this is kind of a long story, but my cousin's husband, his best friend played professional baseball, and he actually also ended up with thoracic outlet syndrome, and he didn't have to, maybe he did get the surgery, but he got to do injections for a long time, and that took away the pain. And so they actually tried the injections on me, which was absolutely terrible, and definitely traumatic experience. And actually, ever since that was when the pain got worse. And so that's when we knew for sure, like, oh, you're going to have the surgery. And so we actually found this amazing doctor in Texas because there's only like 6 doctors in the entire U.S. who do this surgery because it's just so rare. And we actually had a phone call with him. And so I was just telling him all of my symptoms and how bad it had been for so long. And he was like, okay, this is definitely what you have, and I want to help you as soon as possible. So from the phone call, 2 weeks later was my appointment to have the surgery. So we flew out to Texas, and I met the surgeon like 20 minutes before my actual surgery. And I just remember being absolutely terrified. I had never had surgery before. I had never been under anesthesia. I was like completely freaking out, but I also had so much hope in that like this would help. I had tons of friends and family like reach out, texting me that morning. And one of my very, very close friends, she sent me this Bible verse, and it's Mark 5:34. I can just say it. But it's, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go and be set free from your suffering."
Mm-hmm.
And a great Bible story, I highly recommend. But I remember sitting there thinking like, oh, this is my healing. And part of that, like reaching out to God, was I didn't understand why he wouldn't heal me from this, because I've been healed from so many things before. And so I actually, like, while I was being wheeled back into the operation room, and I just had this overwhelming sense of peace, and I knew this was how I was going to be healed. And sometimes healing isn't supernatural, sometimes it is medicine. And so that verse has stuck with me. I've gotten to pray that over other people struggling with pain and everything. But for sure, that was like my big breakthrough moment, is realizing, oh, this is my healing. And I knew that being wheeled back into the operation room at 5 a.m. with these amazing surgeons. So
yeah, oh, it is scary.
It is very scary.
Yeah, massive. Okay, so you had the surgery, and it worked.
It did work.
Okay.
Well, so
yeah,
I
so
woke
you
up
were
and I was
you
like,
were told that you were never going to do gymnastics
they
again.
told me I would never do gymnastics again. So at this point, I didn't even really know if I was going to get to do gymnastics again. But at this point, it was just getting out of pain, because it had been about a year and a half at this point of just like chronic pain all the time.
Yeah.
And so I was just hopeful that I wouldn't be in pain anymore. But I always still really, really was hoping and praying that I would get to do gymnastics, even if it wasn't competitively, but just being able to like flip again. But the surgeon in Texas, actually, he was like, so the thoracic outlet is only super common in baseball players and then some gymnasts, just because those are the only sports that really use those specific muscles. And he was like, I'm not going to tell you never can do gymnastics again. I had 2 players in the World Series last year that I did surgery on. And so I'm not going to tell you, you can't do it. So after a few months, I started physical therapy, and it actually went really well. And it was a lot faster than it should have been. Like, I did all of my exercises, and it helped so much. And then actually it was Easter Sunday, which is actually a really fun time. We went out to the gym, and that was the first time I flipped again. So I was like, oh, I'll just do a handstand. And then I was like, oh, that didn't hurt. Maybe I'll just do a back handspring. And that turned into like doing my kip-on bars and being able to like do all of these flips again that they told me I would never be able to do. And I just think it's really fun that it was on Easter. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like resurrection. Yes. Okay, so what is your takeaway, or something that you want to say to anybody out there who might be going through a time of actual like real suffering?
I would mostly just say lean on God even more than you think you already are. I know that's like everybody's answer. But I think it's not just about like praying the perfect prayer or reading your Bible every single day. It's actually like realizing that like he is there for you in every situation. One of my other verses that I love is Philippians 4:11 through 13. And I know Philippians 13 is super famous. But it actually says, let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Yours is a little different.
Yeah, that's okay.
It says, this is it, yeah. Not that I speak in regard to need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. So in my version, it's I know what it is to be in need, because I have been in need before, but I've learned to be content in every situation. And that's when it goes into the verse of I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I think sometimes we take this verse and we're like, well, I can do anything with God. But if you actually read before it, it's knowing you can do anything with God even when you're struggling. And so I think that's super impactful. And when you actually read the full, I love the entire book of Philippians, but it's really comforting to know that even back in the Bible that people were suffering all the time, and that you can do things with God even while you're suffering.
Yeah.
And so I think just like leaning on that and constantly chasing after the Lord and your relationship with him is really helpful. But also having a community around you that will support you and be there for the highs and the lows. And yeah,
it's good. Yeah, so now you just went to a competition with your team that she coaches. Yes. She has a team that she coaches, and she also competes, which is amazing. Yes. And you got your first.
I got my first perfect 10 on the floor.
That's amazing.
Yeah, if we go back a little bit, so I started my first season, so that was Easter, April, and then that November I started my first competition season. So I competed in my first competition, and I actually made it all the way to the Junior Olympics and got first place on beam and second all around. So that was last July, and then we just started this competition season, and so I hope to make it to the Junior Olympics again. But it's also cool that your goals change. So my goal is obviously no longer to be a 10 by the time I'm a freshman, because I'm a junior.
Yeah.
Not a 10. But I think that was another thing, is that like I was so constantly chasing after, oh, I gotta be a 10, I gotta be a 10. And like we just toured Liberty, and they don't have a D1 gymnastics team. And so I think it's cool that like even then God was changing my outlook on life and the sport, and being able to be like, oh, I want to take a gymnastics PE class, but like I don't have to be a perfect level 10 competing all the time. So yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, just keeping your focus on what's important and remembering that God, he tells us, he said, trust in him with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And in every way acknowledge him, and he's going to direct your path. And not everybody's story is going to be that they, Lilli, she is competing again, and she does have a drive to just do her best in everything, right? I think, and there's the verse, do everything heartily unto the Lord and not unto man. And I think that's kind of what you've taken away, is like, I'm going to do everything that I can possible, but it's all for God's glory. And it's okay if it doesn't play out the way that I wanted it to, but I'm going to trust God.
Yeah.
And giving him, like you said, giving him thanks and being thankful for what you do get to do.
Yeah. Every time I walk out on the floor, like when I got that 10 the other day, I wasn't concerned about the score or even how well, but every time I walk out of the floor, I think of that as just like showing God's glory and doing it just for the Lord, and being thankful that I even get to do this. It's not about the score or the medal that I get for it. It's just about being able to do it, what I love, again, because of God's glory and his goodness.
So. Well, thank you so much for sharing today. And I hope if you're watching this that no matter what you go through, either you've gone through before or you're going through right now, or you might go through later, that this story would resonate with you, and that you would put your trust in the Lord in those worst situations, and give him glory in the best situations too. And just give him thanks no matter what's going on. So, all right, y'all have an awesome day.